It's almost spring 2025. Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am doing a tag. Spring is in the air, or at least on the calendar. It was created by Daniela at Uncommon Reader and Reney at Beyond Books. I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat. There are 10 prompts to this tag. Prompt number 1, Spring Chicks. Name a book that made you feel warm and fuzzy. I am not a warm and fuzzy kind of reader. When I pick up books that are intended to be warm and fuzzy, I usually put them down. However, it just so happened that I recently finished a warm and fuzzy book, and that was Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This is a novel set in the Pacific Northwest. It features an octopus in an aquarium and a 70-year-old janitor, and how they make friends, and the bit of odd characters that come together in this book. I categorize this pretty strongly as women's fiction, although there are some male characters, because this book is just going to end on that warm and fuzzy note, and that it will make readers cry. It just so happened that I read this book this week, and my wife read it because we are in a book group together. And just before I started filming this video, my wife finished the book. And yes, she was crying. When you start this book on page 1 or page 2, you kind of know why you're going to be crying at the end of this book. Not a huge spoiler, because the octopus is 4 years old, and octopuses only live to be 4 years old. So you know that Marcellus is not going to make it at the end, although there's a little bit of ambiguity. But the warm and fuzziness, the sentimentality, the story features families coming together, is just not what I like in my fiction. Prompt number 2, April Showers or Spring Showers. A book that is set near, in, or on the water, or that has the word water in the title. I am going to be cheating just a little bit by holding up 6 books. The Blackwater Chronicles by Malcolm McDowell. This is a horror novel of sorts. It is a historical horror novel that starts in 1919 during the flood, and I think it's in the Deep South somewhere. And a man rescues a woman from a flooded hotel, and they get together. It just so happens that this woman is a river monster, and the fact that she's a river monster plays parts in the storyline, but it's in the background. It is mostly about growing up in this Deep South from 1919 up through World War II. Now, you can get these books in a printed paperback edition, all one copy. They are on audiobook and they are on digital book. However, this is really a fabulous chronicle, and these particular editions, they used to be dirt cheap. This one cost me $1.25, and all the rest are about the same price. But if you were to try to get these editions on the internet, you are going to be paying $30, $50, maybe even $60 per copy. Don't bother with that. Go ahead and get the printed edition or the audio edition or the ebook edition. They are a great story, and I just have to show you, at least my edition has that fabulous step back cover. Prompt number 3, spring break. Talk about a time you took a break from reading and why. I don't think I've ever taken a real break that lasted more than a day. And that's usually when something very busy is going on, like I'm moving that day. I have to pack up or put all the boxes of books and other items into a truck and travel somewhere else. On those days, no, I usually don't get to read, but they only last a day, maybe two. When I was selling my house in Washington State, there were days when I didn't read much, as I said, but normally I don't take a break from reading. Prompt number 4, Swallow's Homecoming, a book or an author you always go back to for comfort. I don't know if I go to this book for comfort, but I will go back to it eventually. I have read it about 4 or 5 times over my lifetime, and that is A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. It is perhaps the funniest book that I have ever read, and the main character, Ignatius, is so detestable. He is so bombastic. He is so crude. He is so opinionated that you have to detest him. But in that detestation, I love him because he is that over the top. I can guarantee you that you will be laughing out loud at the exploits of Ignatius and all the other wild characters in this book. Prompt number 5, Blooms, a book that started slowly but blossomed to be one of your favorite reads. Jerusalem by Alan Moore. This is an absolutely ginormous book. It is 1,258 pages long. The first time I attempted to read this book, I got to about page 300 or page 400, somewhere in that range, and I DNF'd it because it was just too much for my mind to hold. I eventually did listen to the audiobook version, and I finally got the rhythm of the story that Alan Moore was trying to tell. And it is a wild story. There are many plot elements that you are not going to expect that deviate in ways that are totally fascinating. There is a huge chunk of this story that is about a young boy. He's about 3, he's about 4, and he is choking to death. Not only he has died after a choking incident, and it is about his exploits in the afterlife. But this is no afterlife that you will ever encounter anywhere else. You will also encounter a play. You will encounter a poem. You will encounter a chapter written in an alternative form of English. It is readable and understandable as English, but it is not quite exactly English. I will eventually have to reread this book. I will probably do it in tandem with the audiobook, just because this book is hugely complicated and it might help reading, or I may just try to pick it up and read it by itself. My only issue is this book is so huge, it actually hurts the palm of my hand to hold it. Prompt number 6, Eggs in a Basket. 3 books you want to read this spring. Let's start off with Goddess of Filth by V. Castro. This book will be featured in an upcoming video because it is one of my reads for Horror Mayhem, and that is the month of May when you are encouraged to read horror books. This is the story of women somewhere in Latin America who decide to hold a seance just for fun. And they wind up summoning this evil Aztec deity, something like that. For People April, I want to read Logicomics, an epic search for truth by authors whose names I'm not going to attempt to pronounce. This is a graphic novel, and it is about the early life of Bertrand Russell, a very famous English philosopher. And I do like the works of Bertrand Russell. I have read a few of his books and a few of his essays. So I'm looking forward to digging into this graphic novel about his life. On audiobook, I want to listen to The Bone Tree by Greg Isles, the second in the Natchez Burning trilogy. I recently finished the first book, Natchez Burning, a few weeks ago, and that was one fabulous mystery novel. It is partially historical because the crime that is committed in that book took place during the 60s in Mississippi, and it involves racial animosity and the Ku Klux Klan and the crimes they committed. And the modern part is uncovering those crimes. The second book is a continuation of that story. There is some resolution in the first book, but part of the mysteries are not cleared up. So I definitely want to read that in May. Prompt number 7, Green Pastures, a classic that never gets old. Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. This is the novel that killed his novel writing career because he was just a little too forward thinking about sexual relationships and people's relationships with religion. I adore this book about Jude. I feel for him. I could have been just like Jude if I had been born in the 19th century and wanted to get above my situation as a poor orphan and make it into the intellectual world. And that intellectual world totally rejects Jude and Sue, his lover, not his wife, but his lover. And I adore this book. A lot of people find it way too grim for their taste, but it fits me very well. Prompt number 8, Pollen, a book or author you're allergic to. I'm going to bring up Jane Austen. I know she's supposed to be extraordinarily witty about the society that she grew up in, and her comments are supposed to be right on the mark. But I have only read one Jane Austen book, Persuasion. Some people say it's her best book. Others disagree. But you know, it is a story of an unmarried woman getting along in her life. She's about 25 or 26, if I remember correctly. And back then, that was getting to be old maid status. And it is about the love of her early life coming back, her sea captain. And are they going to get married at the end of the book? It's a Jane Austen book. You know they're going to get married. And I just can't put up with that kind of story. My wife did make me watch the film version of Persuasion before I read the book because it was one of her favorite films. And I just don't get the point of Jane Austen. And will I ever read Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, or Emma? I very much doubt so. Prompt number 9, bonus, Equinox. Find 2 books on your shelf that have the exact same number of pages and talk briefly about them. I scoured my hard case crime paperbacks, just holding them up and looking to see how many pages they were. And I found 2 books that are exactly 223 pages long. The first is The Corpse Wore Pasties by Johnny Porkpie, originally published in 2009. It was an original publication to Hard Case Crime. And or to say, Johnny Porkpie ran a strip club in his real life before writing this book. And this book is filled with strippers. A guy is going to enjoy a book about strippers. I don't remember a lot of the plot. It wasn't all that memorable, but I did read this book entirely in one day, so it was engaging in some ways. And then we have Murder Is My Business by Brett Halliday, originally published in 1945, also 223 pages long. I remember even less about this book than I do The Corpse War Pasties. But as it says on the back, 10 years ago, Private Eye Mike Shane did a job for one of the richest men in El Paso, digging up dirt on a boy courting the tycoon's daughter. Now the daughter's back, all grown up and dangerous. And so Shane's, but this time, is to investigate murder. Now, these hard case crime paperbacks are almost always worth reading. Even if they're not the best mysteries in the world, you will enjoy them. Prompt number 10, tag others. I'm going to tag my co-host for the Spring into Adventure event, and that is Gavin at Genre Books, Randy, the Literate Texan, Debs at Rainier Reads, and Sean at Sean D. Steadfast. Don't feel obligated to do this tag if you don't want to. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.